Welcome to the third video on urban issues and challenges in the Unit 2 challenges in the human environment. So we're all about the urban. If you remember, we were looking at the first half of this key idea in the last video. Urban growth creates opportunities and challenges. And it was all about this graph, if you remember. In Mumbai, in India, the population has gone up very rapidly through time, now well over 20 million people. And that has created many opportunities. It's created many new workers, working hard, paying taxes. Today, in this video, we're going to be looking at the challenges. And by that we mean the problems. And all of these relate to this huge increase in the number of people. Okay, so if we consider the challenges, I just want to draw your attention to a couple of these pictures. And you can go online and you can search for pictures of Mumbai. Now, the centre of Mumbai looks like this. Large office blocks, headquarters of many important international businesses, State Bank of India, as we've discussed last time, lots and lots and lots of different places, lots of accommodation, and many very wealthy people, lots of employment, offices, and on the outskirts more factories and so on. However, there are areas such as this area here, which is Dharavi slum, within and around the edge of Mumbai. So this map here shows Mumbai. Now Mumbai is interesting because it's on an island like this, and it's connected with bridges. There are quite a few around here. So the city, if you look here, it says 1950 the city was here, and Dharavi is right there. So this slum that looks like this, with the slum very crowded and cramped housing, so you remember we learnt about this in the lessons, is in the middle of the main part of Mumbai city, and then the city has grown out. So this is 1950, 1957, 1965, and now it really does come right out and onto this area here. So there's a zoomed in area here, and we can see Dharavi, this slum area, is right here in the middle. So we see great wealth, but we also see slums. How do the slums link with the population growth? Well, clearly, many of these rural urban migrants coming in to the city, the huge numbers, 8 million extra people in 20 years. Where are they living? They're not living in these places here, many of them. They're not able to afford it. Many of those people coming in are going to end up living in the slum areas, either Dharavi slum or one of the many other slums in the area. Okay, so let's get some notes down. Let's think about how we're going to lay this out. So what we're wanting to do is think about challenges. And challenges in Mumbai. And all the way through, I want you to be keeping in mind that idea of population growth, because that is the key feature here. Remember that the key idea was that urban growth creates challenges. So population, this urban growth. Now on the specification, it gives us quite a nice long list of challenges. So we'll think about this. So a huge challenge is growth of slums. So these areas are called slums in the city, and they are large areas of crowded houses created from low quality building materials, often scrap materials or piece of corrugated iron, possibly some blockwork, possibly wood. There is a lack of sanitation, which means toilets, clean water, and that leads to open sewers. So if I show you that picture one more time, you see here that actually down the side of the street there, you can see there's a ditch and it's full of water. Now, if you are, these houses have been built on this land, and there are no toilets in place, there are no sewers for the toilets to run into, and a very sensible option is to dig a trench. Well, the only option is to dig a trench, and then the sewage will go into this trench, and dirty water, wastewater from any workshops or small factories in the area will go in here, and that water will go out and into the rivers around. So if you look, that's Dharaway here, and I don't know if you can see, but this is river and water that runs out to the sea. So you can imagine that this waste coming down here, human waste, so faeces, urine, poo, toxic chemicals from workshops, will flow out through the slum and into the water nearby. So that's creating a real risk. So the open sewers leads to disease spreading. Cholera is the nightmare scenario, but also diarrhea and vomiting bugs and things like that, which can also be very difficult. So obviously, if you've got that, then that's going to lead to potentially to death, or to workers not able to work. So try and think about where this goes. So open sewers is water pollution. Okay, we've got crowded houses created from scrap. This is a fire risk, and fire will spread really easily. If the houses are very close together, look at this picture here, very close together. If somebody becomes ill in this area, and that essentially is where the toilet is going, you can imagine that diseases spread easily. Okay, so we're looking at a situation with this huge population growth that you've got your slums growing, and that will create many of these things. It will potentially lead to more crime. It doesn't mean that everybody living in a slum is a criminal, not by any stretch of the imagination. However, it can be more difficult to police. You may have more gangs operating, and certainly in cities such as Rio de Janeiro, they have huge problems with gangs in the slums there, and in various places around the world. If you think about all of these extra people, what else are you going to struggle to provide? You might have not enough energy. All of those people needing electricity. You may not have enough clean water. Not enough energy, not enough clean water, and that's going to feed back into the risk of disease spreading. You may not have enough waste disposal. Now, all of those people, these millions of extra people here on over every sort of 5-10 years, millions of extra people appearing, are creating waste. They're needing clean water, they're needing energy, and they're needing the waste to be disposed of, and all of that creates disease. You've got huge amounts of waste around. This can lead to disease. So it's a real problem. Concern. I mean, if we come to Dharaway, clean water is available for 2 hours per day. So you have to be there, you'll be ready and get up in the morning and make sure that you're getting your water. There are very minimal toilets, nowhere near enough the number of people there, so they're using the open sewers, and then we've got these diseases breaking out. Real problem. The other huge issue, environmental and social issue, is that all of these extra people need to get around this busy city. And so more people equals more cars, buses, rickshaws, etc. Now that, if you think about it, creates a problem of air pollution, along with other things. Now, really important on air pollution, so I'm going to do a terrible picture of a car. If I ask you about air pollution, many students will start talking to me about CO2. And CO2 is an issue, and it creates, and it adds to the greenhouse effect, and therefore it creates climate change. However, if you're in the area, you're not going to say, goodness me, there's a huge amount of CO2 in the air. We breathe out CO2. It's not something that we think about. So that's a global issue. So in this case, if we're talking about what's happening in Mumbai, we wouldn't necessarily talk about CO2. What we would talk about is particulate pollution. And this, pollution, and particulate pollution, please ignore that, is well, if you go to London or if you go to a big city, quite often you'll notice that there's black on railings and on windowsills, and it's unburnt fossil fuels, and it's the stuff that you sometimes see sort of coming out the back of buses, old buses, these clouds of black smoke. That is a major problem, and particulate pollution can lead to health problems. And an example would be asthma. And if you're an asthma sufferer, you'll know that if you're in an area, in a city, or when there's a lot of air pollution around, it can make you feel very, very ill. So if we're talking about air pollution, please talk about particulate pollution and health problems like asthma. There are links to heart disease, there are links to dementia, actually, there are links to lots of different things, and asthma can be very, very dangerous. So let's have a little bit of a look then. Let's just remind ourselves. There are challenges in Mumbai, big challenges, big problems. All these extra people are working and paying taxes and improving the city, but we're seeing growth of slums, extra slums. People coming in, it's crowded, there are not enough toilets, which means there are open sewers flowing through the slums. These will then go on into the rivers and they spread disease because people are using it as a toilet. It's not their fault, they'd have any option, such as cholera. That can then lead on to workers not being able to work and affecting the city. Not good. You may have more crime here. You may not have enough energy. You may not have enough clean water. You may not have enough waste disposal. Let's just add a couple more to that. You may not have enough healthcare. You may not have enough education. Just imagine in the city, or if in Weymouth or in the town where you live, imagine if there were hundreds of thousands of people arriving year on year. Where would they go? The queue at the doctors would get bigger and bigger. There would be too many people to get into the schools. So we see these huge changes, incredibly rapid. More people, more air pollution, particulate pollution with the transport. And let's just remember one more thing when it comes to transport. Mumbai has a particular problem, as most of the city is on this island, and therefore all of the traffic has to pass over about 5 bridges, a number of bridges, approximately 5 bridges, and that makes pinch points, and the traffic is terrible in Mumbai, and it will sit there churning out huge amounts of air pollution. So think about this. Think about the fact that some of these things are social. Not enough healthcare, not enough education. Some of these things are environmental. Air pollution, water pollution. And that those things can have social consequences, like disease spreading for people, like disease from air pollution. And on top of that, they can have environmental impacts if you can't get to work because there's traffic and it's completely blocked, or if you've got people getting diseases and not being able to work. So have a think about the challenges in Mumbai. Look at your revision sheet and just make sure that you've worked through all of these. So Dharavi slum is a key case study, and just make sure you're aware that the rich areas are drawing people in like a magnet wanting a better life. Many will end up living in Dharavi slum, and there are factors in Mumbai that make it problematic. So you're going to be ready to talk about the challenges and also the opportunities.